This video is meant to be a supplement for the Houdini courses offered at Becker College and Lesley University. And in this video, I'm going to take a previous animation that we had worked on generating a rigid body network, and we're going to discuss creating flipbooks. So I have this just kind of basic rigid body simulation here, and I want to just make a quick flipbook of this. So our flipbook icon or button is down here in the lower left. It's right above the render button, which looks like a film reel. So it looks more like a little tablet with a pencil, much like a flipbook, I guess. So I'm going to right click on that, and it says, it gives me the option to flipbook with new settings. So I'm going to click on that, and it brings up this window. So the first thing to point out here is that we have basically a variable here that is a little expression that's saying find out what the start frame is on the timeline. In this case it's 1, and what's the end frame, which is out here at 240, and render that. That's a great way to work because you don't need to be concerned with typing in specific values here, but if you want to, you can just put in specific values. So for instance, my animation, I might want to flipbook this just out to maybe frame 100. So I could change my timeline down here, and that will automatically update due to this expression. Or I could just put a hard value in there, like 100. So I'll do that. The other thing that we want to be aware of is we can go to the size tab, and the default output resolution is 1280 by 720. If we want something a little smaller than that, like for instance in class, I prefer that you drop the resolution down to 50% because I just need a small reference of your flipbooks to evaluate your animation. So I drop the size to 50%, and it tells me that now it will render at 640 by 360. Then I'll come back over to the output tab. And the other important thing here is that we want to make sure the default button is active. This is what it looks like by default, flipbook to mplay. So what that means is when we hit the start button here, it's going to render to the mplay window, which is the picture viewer for Houdini, much like fcheck or what we have in other applications like Maya. So I'm going to hit the start button, and it will render my animation to the flipbook, or I'm sorry, the flipbook to mplay, and from mplay is where we will actually save the file. So I'll hit the start button, and it may delay for a second here as it plays through the animation. Oh, here we go. My flipbook is way off screen, so I'll bring that in here. There's my flipbook. I'm sorry, the mplay. My flipbook in mplay. So now I have my animation in here, and then I can save it. So it hasn't been saved yet, so you need to make sure you save it from here. Now we really have two options for saving, as we had discussed in class as well. We can do an export, and we've been exporting to video for Windows 64-bit. We both at Becker and Lesley in our labs, we've been having trouble with QuickTime. I don't have problems with QuickTime at all at home here, but we have in the labs, so it seems like video for Windows is the best way to go. So if I want to use this method, I would choose video for Windows 64-bit, and then it brings up the window asking me where I want to save it. And $hip is a reference to wherever our current Houdini file is saved. I actually haven't saved this Houdini file yet, so it's going to default to the folder location somewhere in my documents or on my C drive, and that's not where I want to put it. So I could just hit the little browse button here and choose a new location for saving. In this case, I'll just go right to the desktop, and then I'll give it a name. Now, Houdini is very specific about wanting you to put in or leave the file extension, so we don't want to get rid of the .avi on there, and I'll just call this rubber toy bounce, something like that, and then I leave the .avi on there, and then I'll hit accept. And then it should render out to the frames I had set previously in the flipbook window. It says 1 to 100, so that's good. And then I just hit the save button. And then video compression will come up. We don't have very many options for video for Windows, so in class we've just been choosing Microsoft Video 1 and leaving the compression at 75%. And then we should, if everything works right, get a notification here that the movie has been successfully saved. So then that movie will now be out on my desktop, and that's typically how I have everybody submitting their work for right now. The other method we can use is going to the File menu and doing Save Sequence As, which gives us a little more flexibility because this is saving to an image sequence, which we then would need to bring into something like Premiere, After Effects, Nuke Fusion, whatever post tool we're using, and then re-render from there. So if I want to go with that method, I'm going to click on Save Sequence As, and we get something very similar, except our file name is a little different. Now it's still looking for the hip location. So I'm going to set a custom location by hitting the Browse button. And I'm going to put it on the desktop again. Now with this file type, we have an extra piece of information here we need to be aware of, which is $F, and that's the frame number. We need that frame number in an image sequence because the applications like Premiere and After Effects need to know what order to place these images in. So we need that $F. So what I typically do is change the name. So I'll call it I'll just call it Toy Bounce. And then I can put an underscore here, or I could put a dot. Premiere and After Effects and DaVinci Resolve, any of those pretty much see it no matter whether you have an underscore, a dot, or even no space in there at all where we just put it right after the name. But I like to do dot. So I have toy bounce dot $F to attach the frame numbers, and then our image format. Again, Houdini likes you to put the image format right here, so you need to know your file extensions such as JPG for JPEG, TIFF for TIFF, and so on. I don't want any transparency information with this. I just want a down and dirty render, so I'm going to do a JPEG sequence. So I would put in .jpg. Now, this is going to render 100 JPEGs because I'm rendering 100 frames, so I might want to make sure I put it into a folder, because right now I'm just putting it right on the desktop, which means my desktop is going to have 100 JPEGs on it. So I'm going to create a new folder here and just call it renders or something like that. So now we see it's going to drop it on the desktop in the renders folder, and its file is going to be toybounce.framenumber.jpg. And then I'll hit accept. And then now since I put JPEG as my file extension, it recognizes that and says, well, what do you want your JPEG quality to be? I'll just keep it at 100%, and I'll hit save. And then it should successfully write those images out to the desktop. Then I could take those images into Premiere or After Effects or whatever post tool I'm using and either do more work to it, or in this case just re-render it out with more options for AVI and MOV.